Hi, welcome to Farm Bread. I'm Kate. So today I'm going to share my top 3 tips on using the dough hook with your ANKARSRUM. I will be sharing some insights based on my own experience on when to use the dough hook and why. I know from personal experience that the dough hook can be quite intimidating. First, it just looks a little odd, right? It's not a very intuitive shape based on all of the other dough hooks that we're used to working with. When I did some research and I watched some videos, the videos that I had watched were all around the dough roller. So when I did get the package, I opened it up, super excited to go through everything. And then when I decided, oh, okay, I'm gonna start making some bread, instead of using the roller, I put this in, and my first bread was just a flop. I was making a big batch for some customers, and it just did not turn out the way I was hoping. So I know from personal experience that this can be really challenging to work with when you first get started. I certainly don't want that to happen to you. So that's why I'm sharing these top 3 tips based on my own experience to help you get started making delicious breads successfully.
Welcome to Farm Bread. I'm Kate, and I make simple, delicious artisan breads here on our little backyard farm. Making bread doesn't need to be complicated. Do not overthink it. Trust your instincts, take some risks, and have fun in the process. And always remember, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
So tip number 1, start with the dough roller. I know this is a video on how to get started with the dough hook, but what I would really recommend is if you are new to the mixer, play around with the dough roller first and acclimate yourself to the machine and how it works. This is a very different process than any other mixer, and it's an amazing mixer, but it does take a little bit of time to get used to how it works. I did create a video with my top 3 tips for the dough roller, so definitely check that out if you haven't yet. So start with the dough roller, and once you have a good feel for that, then you can start playing around with the dough hook. So tip number 2, whisk your ingredients together first. In my experience, trying to mix the ingredients in the bowl with the dough hook takes a really long time. Definitely use your knife to help get the ingredients moving around. But what is even faster and more effective for me is if I measure out my ingredients with the bowl using a kitchen scale. Once I have everything in the bowl, I just whisk everything together with a Danish dough whisk, or you could use a fork or a spoon. And then once you have everything starting to get lumpy and combined, so all of your ingredients are in the bowl, that's when you can take your bowl off the scale, put it on your ANKARSRUM mixer stand, and then add your dough hook and the dough knife, and then you can start to turn the machine on and then utilize the hook from that point on. It's just a big time saver for me, and it will help you get started a little bit faster and make the process a little bit more efficient for you. So tip number 3, reposition the arm. Similar to the dough roller, you can adjust the arm to position the dough hook where you want it to be. Make sure that you're using the dough knife with the dough hook, because the dough knife is really going to help to guide the dough back around to the dough hook. You typically want to position the arm so that the dough hook is centered within the bowl, but you can either have it fixed, not too tight, but fixed towards the center, or you can let it move freely. You'll know when you put the dough hook in to begin with, it is towards the center of the bowl. And sometimes I don't actually fasten it. I just let it kind of gradually see where it needs to go, and then maybe I'll tighten it a few minutes into a knead or a stretch. Another tip with the dough hook is that it should be about 4 to 5 millimeters off the bottom of the bowl. So you actually don't want it touching the base of the bowl. And what you can do is just take a screwdriver. Where you insert the dough hook into the bowl itself, there's a hole, and in that hole is a screw. And if you loosen the screw, it rises up, which means that the dough hook is going to rise a little bit higher. So that will give you a little bit more clearance and height on your dough hook. It's super easy to do. Another really amazing design with the ANKARSRUM mixer. And lastly, when do you want to use the dough hook? Well, as far as I can tell, with the baguettes recipe that comes in the ANKARSRUM cookbook, I do think the baguettes turned out better with the dough hook. I've made sourdoughs with both the dough hook and the dough roller, and both have turned out great. In general, I think you could use either for your breads. What I would say is play around and see what works better for you. Notice the crumb, the texture. What do you prefer? I will say that I find using the dough hook can be a little bit more difficult when you have a drier or a lower hydration dough. So I tend to like to use the dough hook when I am using, when I'm making a sourdough or something that's like a higher hydration. If I'm using a lower hydration yeasted dough, I typically like to use the dough roller. Conversely, I've had great success with sourdoughs with the dough roller too. Once you start to get used to it and you play around with the machine and you experiment a little bit, I think you're gonna have success no matter what you use. It's really a versatile, well-built machine. It just takes a little time to get used to the different parts and see which ones you prefer. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope these 3 tips on how to use the dough hook with your ANKARSRUM are helpful. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. As always, please like, subscribe, and share. I always appreciate your feedback and your viewership, so thank you so much for that. I also created a video sharing my 3 tips for using the dough roller, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, and I wish you the best success with your ANKARSRUM mixer.